Terraria is full of all kinds of weapons, from an arrow rainbow to a one-shot yo-yo. Today, we are going to be using a special sword called the Influx waiver to work our way through Terraria's progression until our final challenge, the Moonlord. The Influx waiver is a melee weapon that deals a base damage of 100. It shoots a blue sword projectile that will disappear, but can return up to 2 more times to attack a nearby enemy or the same enemy. The Influx waiver has a 1 in 6 chance of dropping from a Martian saucer in the Martian Madness event. Without further ado, let's get right into the run. We start by collecting our weapon from the chest and building some housing for NPCs to move in. Now, as you might expect, Pre-Hardmode was an absolute breeze with our post-Plantera weapon. Aside from a few unfortunate boulder encounters while caving, every boss and challenge was utterly stomped on. I soon realized a serious problem which could have cost me the entire video. I'm not wearing my signature vanity set. While I know it looks like I'm wearing molten armor, I assure you, I kept this in the vanity slot the entire playthrough. Now that I have ensured the comment section won't be filled with confused messages, let's get right back to Terraria. I was able to one-hit every enemy, so collecting some decent accessories wasn't too difficult. For the memes, I decided my first armor would be Crimtane armor, meaning I ended up annihilating the Brain of Cthulhu in mere seconds, without a single piece of armor on. To celebrate, I set up a small battle tower on the end of my base and used it to wipe out the Goblin army. After cleaning up the wall of flesh without even making an arena, I had just entered hard mode. Now that the ancient spirits of light and dark have been released, most enemies are now able to hit me, which after a very close fight with Queen Slime, I was reminded to be more careful, as I could actually die to bosses now. I farmed for some titanium armor for some decent defense, then I quickly gathered some souls of flight and a giant Okay. After killing hundreds of harpies, I still had no giant harpy feather. This happened a lot in my run. Sometimes I would get really lucky, like when I almost had full health from a single mining expedition. Other times, I couldn't find a single pair of ice skates. Oh look, it started raining. I headed over to the ice biome and grabbed some frost wings instead. At this point, I was ready to fight the mech bosses. I defeated the twins and the destroyer quite quickly. But then, right before I was going to fight Skeletron Prime, I ran into some problems. I was used to progressing super fast, but now there's a solar eclipse. I couldn't do anything except sit there whacking vampires and fritzes the whole night, as there was nothing else to do. Finally, I chopped up Prime and went to Plantera. I was a bit worried about my armor, so after farming a bit of chlorophyte, I had a full set of turtle armor. As you can see, in the fight, I really didn't need turtle armor, but it was essential for progression. After farming a few golems, I had enough beetle shells to craft beetle armor. This was what I would use for Moonlord. Speaking of Moonlord, I headed straight to the dungeon to smack around lunatic cultists with my flashy space sword. After triggering the Lunar event, I started to chip away at the pillars. The nebula was by far the most difficult, as the nebula floaters were too fast for my sword, and all the other enemies just were shooting stuff at me. After taking down the solar, stardust, and vortex pillars too, I awaited an impending doom. As the final fight began, I swung my sword like crazy, trying to kill him before he killed me. I dealt too much damage to the hands, as the middle eye was the hardest to get to. Pretty soon, the 2 hands were open, and the race against time began. I swung my sword as the eye opened and closed annoyingly, as the sweet spot for damage was also the place where you die the fastest. Eventually, the center eye fell and the Moonlord's core broke open. With all 3 true eyes of Cthulhu locked onto me, the final stage began. We had started to exchange blows, one after another. My health fluctuated from low to high. My heart slammed against my chest as I dealt the final hits. Suddenly, the Moonlord fell apart, leaving only a massive, gaping skeleton where it once stood. Oh my gosh. I did it. Oh. Beating Terraria using only the Influx waiver was quite a journey. Starting so powerful was fun, as the challenge grew and grew the more I progressed. If you have any ideas about what other weapons I should beat Terraria with, comment them down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.